This is Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. An informal chats with top business moguls as they share their stories of failure and success in a fun and relaxed way. Get entertained, educated, and unlock the secrets to success.
Welcome to Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman. I have Steve Borelli here with us from USA Today. Steve is the sports special editions editor and the sports parenting column. I'm glad to have you to talk about everything business of sports and business of parenting with kids in sports, right? And you've written some really amazing articles that I've been following now for some time. And I love your perspective and insight that you're providing to families across the entire country relative to youth sports. What got you into the business?
Well, it happened very organically, which is really cool. I'm a dad. I have a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old boy. They're both high school athletes. And I've been a sports writer, editor at USA Today since 1999, since I was 20.
Oh, wow.
So I've been editing our publications, our special publications, which I did a lot when they were younger.
Right.
And then I got into coaching, baseball, a little bit of soccer, basketball, a little bit of football. And about 2.5 years ago, they came to me at work and they were actually going to reduce the number of specials that I was working on. But they said, we really want to get into this industry, this business of tips. They more described it as kind of tips for parents whose kids play sports, which was perfect for me since I coached my kids for 10 years and all this stuff was fresh in my mind. And I was able to combine the writing, which I've always done, and into offering advice.
So you've always been into writing. Was that what you studied in college as well?
I was an English major. I went to Georgetown here in D.C.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Great school.
Back in those days, there was no journalism program there. There was one journalism class, which you only seemed to take.
Interesting.
So, but I got lucky. I latched on with a school paper, and a family friend introduced me to a sports writer at the Washington Post named William Gilday. I ended up writing a bit about him a few years ago when he passed. But he brought me in, really mentored me. And then he got me a part-time job, helped get me a part-time job at the Washington Post while I was still in school.
Very cool.
So, but this is back in the 90s when I would go out and cover high school football games.
So, but not to interrupt you, but you went to Georgetown.
Mm-hmm.
You have a storied sports program.
Absolutely.
From Allen Iverson. And so tell us, were you active with the sports teams at Georgetown?
I was actually a rower for 3 years at Georgetown.
Okay.
I was a baseball player in high school.
Nice.
I did write for the school paper. If you can remember, John Thompson was very closed off with his program. Right. So I did do a few basketball interviews, but it wasn't very significant.
Alonzo Mourning, another great one from there.
Yeah, he was 4 years ahead of me, so I just missed him. Othello Harrington was the same class as me, and Allen Iverson was it for 2 years when I was there. I've actually gotten to know Jerome Williams pretty well. He was in my class. Played on the 96 Sweets.
So I grew up in Hampton, Virginia, which is where Allen Iverson is from. And not to veer too much off of our topic, but I guess a few months ago, Allen Iverson had the commercial. And he asked in the commercial, are we talking about practice? and so I had to show my daughter the initial interview back when he was with the 76ers, just to explain why that was actually hilarious.
Yeah.
And the commercial I just thought was so funny because back then it was kind of a tense moment in the original interview many, many years ago. But then to see that commercial, I just found fascinating. But no, Georgetown has an incredible sports program. So it sounds like you grew and really refined your writing skills during that period of time that you had a lot of great sports, even though, of course, the team was a little closed off in basketball. And that's pretty neat.
It's just writing. When you're into writing, you just have to write and practice and interview people. And that's how you get good at it. I mean, it's still hard. I still find it challenging, but it's very, very satisfying when it's over with.
Now, so you became a coach for your sons, which kind of leaned you more into the sports writing piece of it, it sounds like.
Yeah. I mean, I was an editor and a writer at USA Today, so I covered a lot of sports over the years, baseball, tennis, covered just about every major sport. And then when my kids were born, I started coaching their little league team like my dad used to do. And so I got into that aspect of it. And obviously it's a whole different world than when you and I were out there playing.
I love the youth sports, though. I coached my daughter's basketball team, and they required the coaches to. So I fell into coaching. I was going to help the coach, and then suddenly he couldn't coach, and they asked me to coach the team. And I thought, what do I do with an entire female teenage group of team members? And I hadn't coached at that point. I loved it though. Absolutely loved it. Just part of it was giving them my life lessons of having played sports and then helping them figure it out. But they required me to go through a positive coaching program before I could begin coaching.
Yeah.
And I took the course and I thought this is fantastic because so much happens in sports from a parent's perspective. But I've written and seen so many of your articles. What do you think some of the most important tips are that you've given and written for parents? I know there's a lot that you've written, but what comes to mind is your parenting ideas that you've written about to help people figure it out, not only on the parenting side, the coaching side, and what else you've written.
I think it's hard to do in the moment, but I think one of the things I realized since I've gotten out of coaching a little bit is to just kind of stress the experience and the lessons your kids are getting out of the sport, not as much whether they win the game or not. I think sometimes it's more fun. Like one of my most fun games watching my son is when he pitched at a championship baseball game and they ended up losing, but the fact that he competed and did so well, right. I mean, that just means so much for you as a parent, just seeing that. And those are the life experiences. Like most of our kids are not going to go on and play professionally. And it's more just, getting that experience and just using sports as a way, I write about this a lot, as a way to kind of help you in life, which it helped me as well.
And that's an incredible point because I tell everyone the same thing, the value of sports. We spend a lot of time and money in sports, but there's so much that my daughter has gained. She was a competitive gymnast. She played softball. She was in soccer as a kid. She was in taekwondo as well, and then the basketball. But the discipline they get, learning to show up on time, learning to be prepared, those life lessons carries her specifically. She's in college now, beyond those youth years. And they're ingrained in who she is now. It's not even a requirement. I'm amazed to watch her show up for interviews. She's now working with some great organizations. She'll work with Forbes this summer. But watching her follow through and follow up, it's enlightening just to see her evolution.
Absolutely. I think it's very challenging when you're going through it at the time. My sons are high school athletes, seeing them come home. I remember those days and doing their homework late at night.
Right.
I was a college rower, as I mentioned. That was year round. That was very challenging at Georgetown, getting up early for practice. So it really does teach you. I think when you get out into the real world, you have a little bit more of an edge.
Right. Right. Yeah. Now that's amazing. Do you have a favorite sports movie by any chance? You just made me think of the rowing movie came out not long ago. And that was one of my favorites, of course, is Jerry Maguire.
That's a great one. Yeah. I mean, I love the Rocky movies. And then, but the Natural, Major League, those are a couple of my favorites. Right. Growing up, those were definitely my childhood.
So what are some of the trends that you're seeing in sports and youth sports these days?
I think the term that people use is the professionalization of youth sports. I think you go out to fields and you see a lot of good stuff, right. But I think you also see a lot of people really pushing their kids,
okay,
and trying to put too much into if you go to a little league field, there's a lot of you almost feel bad for the kids sometimes when they're up there and their parents are telling them what to do while they're trying to hit and play with their friends.
Right.
So I think we need less emphasis on, success within games, and doing really well at an early age. I mean, there's so many kids you see now that my kids are older that are late bloomers.
Right.
And they end up doing really well. Well, the kids who were really good when they were young are now not even playing.
Right.
So I think we just have to be patient and just, it's fun for us. It makes it more stressful for us when we're out there worrying about whether they strike out or not.
Right.
Yeah.
I can tell you that before my daughter's gymnastics meet, I was absolutely nervous beyond belief. I was more nervous watching her than me competing when I was growing up. But I also had a policy that I would never challenge or question a coach's unless it's something that's completely wrong, right? If they were abusing my daughter. But I allowed them to coach. And so I try to stand back and let them do what they needed to do to give her the guidance. They were the experts in the field. But you're right, it gets a little bit more complicated these days.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big things that parents do, and we all have done it, is we try to talk to our kids while they're playing. And I write about this a lot, instead of just trusting the coach.
Right.
No coach is perfect, especially the young age. They're often volunteers, but you need to let them do their job that they volunteered for, and then maybe you can have a conversation with your kid later after the event is over with and discuss things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the best articles that I read of yours was the article's titled, "What Advice Does Little League's Coach of the Year Have for Your Kid?"
Podcasts are so popular, even monkeys are doing it.
75% of Americans listen to podcasts monthly. That's 210 million people in the United States alone. And yes, podcasts are profitable. Joe Rogan is making $30 million per year. Your content, your knowledge is worth sharing. Don't just dream it, do it. Visit andycostafilms.com/podcast and turn your content into leads.
What advice does Little League's Coach of the Year have for your kid? Let's eat.
Yeah.
Great article. Is about a year ago that it came out, and EAT, EAT stands for effort, attitude, and teamwork. And what I remember most, and I've been using this from a business perspective, is that his philosophy was he didn't want to put a lot of stress on kids from this perspective. He wanted them to go out there and be able to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. But his position was, and this is me summarizing the article, his position was he didn't want them to stress about being taken out of the game for making a mistake. Because a lot of times that's what happened. You miss a ball or you miss a play that should have not been missed, and then they're pulled out of the game. And it's the same for business. Employees will make mistakes, hopefully nothing catastrophic from a business perspective, but they need to make that mistake and learn from it, which hopefully will make not only them better, but the organization better. And I don't know if you can enlighten us on anything that you recall from the article, but it was a great article for me from a business perspective.
Yeah. Well, I think the fact that they ended up, well, I don't know if I want to spoil the story, but they had some success, despite his philosophy. And I think the philosophy actually makes the kids stronger in the long run because you're not worried about, I think I've seen that a lot, and I'm sure I was guilty of it once or twice. Like, a kid makes a mistake and you want to say, don't do that, or you take them out of the game instead of just letting them, giving them the confidence that they can play, they can make mistakes, and they'll have another chance out there.
Right.
It's a really good life lesson. And like you said, in the workplace, I mean, none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes from time to time. And I think it actually makes you work harder when you make a mistake.
It does. Yeah. And so I've been coaching managers and training managers for a very long time. And it's really special. We can go to an employee, maybe they made an error. You say, here's how you should have looked at it differently, but they know that you're there to support them. I interviewed the CEO of Bluebell Ice Cream. And he tells the story of when he was so proud of his work. He was pretty early in his career, a few years in his career. And he mentioned that he was expecting that he might get a promotion soon to like a regional president type position. And he went to this meeting expecting, this is my moment. This is where I'm going to shine. They're going to tell me how great I am and that they're going to promote me. He went to this meeting and he said the energy was just different. And they spent the entire time talking about what he wasn't doing well. And he went to his hotel, sat at the edge of the bed, and he had to make a decision. Do I stay and try to continue to improve and expand, or do I leave? Because he just wasn't certain if they stood behind him. But ultimately, that was their position. We stand behind you. We believe in you. We just want you to know where we think you can make areas of improvement. So it's kind of that same philosophy, but having that confidence of knowing that someone stands behind you, it removes a lot of that burden. And you're now free to go and work harder. So I think you're right. I think kids work harder when they realize that they're not going to be severely punished for an error.
Right. And I think that applying that to youth sports, I think playing kids in an equal amount of time, even despite skill levels, especially at younger ages, is just so important.
Okay.
You don't want to reward the kids who, are bigger and stronger.
Sure.
And, early on in the games and the season, just to get some wins, you want to make sure that every kid is developing, getting an equal amount of time. So those kids know that, okay, I made a mistake, I'm going to have another shot.
Right.
I think we all do that when our kids are young. We try to win.
Right.
But then you realize when you get older that, why did I try to win so much? I mean, it was more about, you want the kid to say, I remember that coach for the way he coached me, not how many games we won.
So I want you to tell me more about that process, but I'll tell you a quick story. And I know we're mostly business focused in the program, but in coaching my daughter's basketball team, it was an interesting experience. So I developed all of these plays. I had them ready in color, and I had every person moving where they needed to go in this diagram. I sent it to the parents and I said, this is what we're going to work on. Yeah. And when we were approaching our first game, I knew that we weren't ready. It just didn't work. It kind of fell a little flat from the concept perspective.
Yeah.
So I narrowed it to one play, and then I wanted to test it. So the first game I had the players run the play, and then they came to me at halftime. We were down by a point or two. They came, and the other team had been playing. You could tell they were much more experienced players on this other team. So my team came to me and they said, Coach, the plays aren't working. It's not working at all. We just want to go out and kind of freestyle and then play our game. And they did. I allowed them to. Not a problem. I'm here to support you. And they were demolished that second half of the game in basketball. And then the next game, they came to me similarly and said, well, Coach, we want to do the same thing we did. And I let them. And by the end of that game, they said, all right, we're ready now. We're ready to learn and to listen. And I gave them coaching and advice. And the other thing I taught them, don't be afraid to shoot. Like if you miss, don't worry about it. Kind of the same philosophy. Don't be afraid, because as they say, you will never make the shot you didn't take.
Right.
And the team started to flourish. We went on this amazing streak of winning games just from the freedom of knowing that they could take the shot and that we had kind of a game plan that they could exercise and implement. And it was just so much fun. You started to see the kids blossom. It was absolutely amazing. It was an amazing experience for me. Yeah. But the same thing from a business side and how you coach and prepare employees to excel.
Yeah.
And so what else are you seeing kind of from your writing perspective in youth sports and parenting?
I think, like I said, I think when kids I think a lot of parents are really focused on the next level.
Yeah.
And so when they get older, there's really a lot of focus, especially in an area like this where we are in the DC suburbs. There's just a lot of focus on the next level and how can my kid be this kid?
Yeah.
I think we lose there's a lot of surveys done that I've written about. Parents have these high hopes that their kid's going to get a scholarship. They're going to play professionally. The college scholarships, 5% or less, or even less, or even playing in college is less than 10%. So I think you have to be kind of always be thinking about the experience and whether you try hard or not. I mean, whether you make it or not, but if you try hard, that's successful. If you have a good high school career, that's successful. Even if you don't finish college,
Agreed.
And your career will end organically at some point.
I see so many CEOs that were former players in college.
Yeah.
Which is just incredible to see. Now, do you cover college sports as well?
Yeah. I've written about pretty much every level of sports.
How is NIL impacting? I know it's changed so much, and I read a lot about it. I just don't know it well, but it's fundamentally changed. And I love college football, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I think every team, as you know, from the college game, every team changes every year now because of the transfer portal and because of NIL. I don't know if we ever thought we'd see the day where money is going to, salaries are basically driving now sports, collegiate sports. But and it's trickling down to the high school level now as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, I think you're allowed to market yourself. Your own identity and your profile.
Wow,
and
interesting.
So kids can make, the best high school players are making a little bit of money, making some money off of their, social media and that sort of stuff, promoting their name, image, and likeness. I mean, there's some states have rules where you can't use your high school in your whatever you're doing, you're promoting, but you can certainly promote yourself. And I think that's changed a lot. If you look out on social media, kids definitely promote themselves and you're encouraged to do that in order to get recruited.
Sure.
And I think there's a fine line you have to draw between being a little too boastful and promoting yourself. And I think that's a line that we cross sometimes.
I think I read recently that they finally changed the rules in college and they're allowing the colleges to pay, I think, directly now, if I recall correctly. I think that was a recent change to pace.
That was just the other, last week, I believe. Yeah. So that changed the whole new ball game, right? It changes everything. Right. And it really, I think what you're seeing probably in the collegiate game now is you're not going to see as many Cinderella teams because the powers are going to get the top players, right? I mean, every once in a while you'll see one, but I mean, I think the fun of sports is I think I listened to one of your recent ones where everyone has a puncher's chance, right?
Right.
But you kind of take some of that away when you're really stacking teams at the collegiate level, especially football, basketball.
And did you cover the University of Virginia's basketball team when they lost to the lowest seed? I'm not sure if you were covering sports then, but that was an incredible journey. And then I saw I think it was on 30 for 30, one of the programs after they won the following year. But that must have been an interesting period of time just to see that year they were ranked number 1 in the country and everyone expected them to win. And then they lost in the first round.
You remember that these are just kids, right? They're 18 to 22-year-old kids or whatever. So, I mean, I think when I was growing up, you probably remember, a 16 had never been to 1.
Right.
I think it's happened a couple times now. But I mean, that even a 15 beating a 2 was unheard of. And so when you see that, I mean, I think most people were just kind of blown away by that. Right. But I think the great thing about that story is that Virginia came back and won the championship.
Right. That's the beauty.
Yeah.
Like and you're right, they are kids. And so it's a great learning process for them.
Yeah.
To having gone through that experience.
Yeah. And it's life. Like I just talked to someone for my most recent article. You don't. He's an author who's written about, actually, we've been talking about this off air, about boys' sports participation down. He said he was a British guy. He's a terrible rugby player. He lost a lot, but he learned so many lessons, right, having fun with his friends and losing, because in life you lose, right?
Now, are you covering rugby and some of these other sports? Cornhole has become one of them.
I like to play cornhole. I've never covered rugby. I've covered fishing. I've covered some other things when I spent some time down in Florida. But no, I mean, I think just the general, what I like to cover is just how sports helps people and helps kids and the experience. I've actually had people write to me saying sports is not necessary. I think they talk about it more from a team, competitive perspective. Sure. But I think free play is something that we can all do.
Right.
And we can take with ourselves into adulthood, even if we don't play on a team.
Agreed. And you made me think there a few years ago when my daughter was an early teen. So she was 13, 14. There was a group of about 12 kids in our neighborhood. And every day I tried to make a point that we would go outside. Once I got home and they finished their homework, we would go outside and we would play. I hadn't played Foursquare since I was a kid. And I started playing with these kids, and it was humiliating for me. But it was fun, and I became really good pretty quickly. But playing Foursquare, and we were playing kickball and volleyball, and then we were also playing board games. So we were playing Connect Four and some of these other board games. But just to watch the kids get together from a fellowship standpoint, and just, as you mentioned, the outdoor play and getting them active and not on the computer, it was incredible. They look forward to it. The parents look forward to it. The parents had a bit of a break. Yeah. So I was kind of the neighborhood dad when it came to it, but it was a lot of great learning. My daughter still talks about it to this day.
Yeah, I think I'm in a lucky situation where my kids play a little bit in our neighborhood. We have a pretty close knit. They ride their bikes around, they throw the football around. But I think you see there's just so many distractions these days.
Right.
And I think sports is more important than ever now, because there are so many of those distractions. Now, I think video games, when you play on a team, there's a teamwork element to that. You can play with your friends.
Sure, absolutely.
And that's great. I mean, to an extent, I think that's important. Right. But I think you need the physical activity. Right. Kids need to get that.
Agreed. So you hear that from quite a few people that they don't need sports. Is that a common kind of?
I think it's more just from taking money away from schools and funding and a budget standpoint. I think people get upset about teams because a lot of kids don't play on teams.
Right.
But I think just the aspect of kids playing sports, youth sports, recreational sports.
Right.
As an adult, I like to work out. I mean, these are things that keep you healthy throughout your life. These are healthy habits to have.
Now, you do write about health in sports as well. I know in a couple of your articles that dietary supplements and some of the other articles, what are you finding from a health perspective? And so I think you're right that physical exercise is definitely important from a health and engagement perspective. But what else are you seeing in youth sports?
Well, I think there's a lot more surgeries, for one thing. You mentioned supplements, but a lot of injuries. My sons play baseball. There's a lot of arm injuries. Okay, a lot of kids are having the elbow ligament replacement surgery because there's so much fitness and weightlifting that kids throw really hard from a really young age. Sure. So you have that. That's one thing I've definitely noticed. And then ACL tears. You see a lot more of that stuff, I think, in the last 10, 20, 30 years than you used to. Gotcha. Sports have gotten so much more competitive. And then you have kids, like we talked about the game and getting to the next level. You have, like I mentioned, and I wrote about in that article, just kids taking supplements. And I reached out to the American Academy of Pediatrics, who I've used as a source on several stories. And you can read the article. They've discouraged a lot of that stuff because, I think it's not a lot of these supplements that are not prescriptions. Right. You don't know everything that's in them. Right. They're not required to say everything that's in there. So we have to be really careful with those.
Yeah. I think we mentioned Project Play at some point. Are you pretty active with them? I'm still learning the organization, but it sounds like they're pretty engaged in the youth sports community and ecosystem.
They're great. I've gotten to know them through the Aspen Institute, and they just do really great work. And their goal is to get as many kids playing as possible.
Right.
And it's all kids. It's not all of us have the resources to go play travel sports, and they really stress the core value of sports and participatory sports and playing together with your friends and staying in shape. Like, I think that's so important. It's okay, even if you don't play on a high school team, it's okay to play on a rec team,
right,
with your friends, or coach a youth team, when you're an older kid. Like, those are things that keep us involved in sports too.
Right. I think the intramural sports in college, great way to stay involved without having that super competitive piece. I played intramural flag football and the like. So you're right. There's just some great recreational options. Even as an adult, I played softball and continue to play flag football. It's a great way to be engaged and to spend time with friends and to get to know people. And even softball was just so much fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a great way to meet people too. Yeah.
So for our listeners that are more business focused, but maybe also parents, what would you leave them from your perspective on where they can continue to learn about youth sports and parenting ideas and tips? I know that you have your column, but what resources would you extend to their listener?
I think, be really careful of the money that you're spending and make sure that you feel like you're getting something out of what you're spending. Like, we spend a fair amount on travel sports, but I think my kids are trying to play in college, and we try to enjoy it as an experience.
Right.
Like, my sons and I went to Atlanta last summer, and we drove together and it made it a road trip.
Right.
I think that's the way you have to kind of approach youth and travel sports if you're putting money into it.
Right.
It's a family experience. You can't expect to get anything out of it. You can't expect to profit off of it.
Right.
You just have to do sports for the experience. And whatever level you play, I think that's the most important thing, is have constant conversations with your kid about whether he or she is enjoying what they're doing. That it's not just coming from you.
Agree. We turned all of the travel that we had for our family and sports into mini vacations.
Yeah. Right.
And so the micro vacations, and we'd go down to ESPN Wide World of Sports down at Disney in Florida, and then Ohio State had a big gymnastics competition in that area, and they would just find opportunities for the kids, and we turned it into learning experiences. We'd visit anything that we could find in the area, museums and other options for them to continue to learn. So I agree with you.
Yeah. For sure. No, I mean, that's what it's all about, is spending time with your family, and however you do it, whether it's a traditional vacation or spending time together through sports. I mean, I think that's what the kids are going to remember, like the time that they spent with you.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, it's been quite an honor to finally meet you in person. I know we've had quite a few exchanges, and I've been reading your articles for quite a while, and it's amazing at the research that you provide and the people that you've engaged with for your articles and your information. So I appreciate you helping to give a lot of people insight on the business of sports, the business of parenting in sports and youth sports particularly, and then the ideas and information is just a great resource for all of us. So I thank you for coming on the program. Any lasting thoughts you'd like to leave with our listener?
People always tell me, listen to your kids. And I think I emphasize that. Just make sure that you're communicating with your kids about their experience. Maybe not right after the game.
Right.
But that's another thing that I drill. You give them a little time to decompress.
Right.
But talk to them about what they're doing and what they like, what they don't like, what they're learning. I think that makes it a more interactive experience for you.
I agree. Great advice for all of those parents out there listening. Steve, thank you for joining us on the program.
You're welcome, Ronnie. Anytime.
Yeah, thank you for joining us on Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman.
Thank you for listening to Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. Please be sure to subscribe and share, and stay tuned for more incredible Business Decoded episodes.